Two friends, Alan Dale and Jerry Carew, who grew up just a few streets apart in St. John's East End, have been separated by Canada's geography for 3 decades. They came together virtually during the pandemic to chat about like-minded interests. Alan lives in PEI and Jerry in Newfoundland. Thriving in remoteness has been a common theme for both of them during the pandemic. Gale Force wins. The podcast is the result.
Well, welcome to another edition of Gale Force Wins. My name is Alan Dale, and with me as always, my good buddy from the East End of St. John's, Jerry Carew. How are you, Jerry?
I'm doing well, Alan, and I'm telling you, I'm just enjoying what you and I are doing together. I'm looking forward to talking to Dave Jeenes. My brother recommends him highly. My brother served in Afghanistan. I see in Dave's bio that he did as well. I can understand why my brother sees a lot in David. I also know that you're doing a lot of good things for my brother, so I really appreciate that.
That's great. And so we're certainly excited. We always love a good story of a fella coming from away, moving to Newfoundland and making things better when he comes here. So we're really excited to hear from you. Dave, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi guys, thanks for having me on. My name's Dave Jeenes. I grew up in the South Wales Valleys over in UK, and I joined the army when I was 16, and that journey throughout the military, and then things that proceeded that led me to settle here in Newfoundland when I retired back at the end of 2013.
Dave, what's the South Wales Valley like? Tell me about that part of the world.
Oh, it's it was a fantastic place to grow up. There was no airs and graces. Just I hear stories of people growing up here, maybe downtown St. John's or out in some of the smaller communities, and it's very similar the way we grew up. People just fended for themselves. If you didn't turn up at the right time when you were told to be, somebody would tell your parents where you were, because everybody in the community knew you. He was either in a fight down one street or he was caught up somewhere else. It was a great place. We had the mountains either side, obviously being valleys. It's all the houses were built to house the miners back in the late 1800s. So it was all row housing, just going across the contours of the hills, just street after street. And every town was built to support the miners for the one mine in that town. There was one big house at the top of the town where the mine or the quarry owner would live. And then all the miners would live in the smaller houses down below. So my grandparents' generation were the miners. And then I grew up in a humble household, a small tiny little 3-bedroom house. My dad was a bricklayer, my mother was a factory worker. And lots of friends living close by, and you were never short of somebody to hang out with, play football with, play knock the door and run away, that kind of stuff. It was a great upbringing. Loved it. Wouldn't change anything.
Yeah, it sounds like a pretty nice upbringing, pretty tight community. Sounds a lot like where Jerry and I are from, right? That kind of where people look out for one another, and they want to see you do well, and they want to see you do good. Mom, so dad was a bricklayer and mom was a factory worker. What kind of factory did mom work in?
So my mom worked originally when I was a small baby. She worked in a zipper factory, believe it or not. They made zips. Didn't attach the zips to anything. They just actually made the zips. And then she worked in a factory. My aunt set up a blouse factory, making women's blouses. Typical. Think of Dallas or Dynasty,
right? With
the big shoulder pads on, them kind of things. My aunt made those. So my mother then worked there while I was growing up. My mother worked there. My gran was the tea lady, and my sister worked there as soon as she left school, and so did one of my aunties worked there as well.
Brothers and sisters, how many of those you got, Dave?
So an older sister, 5 years older than me, and I had a younger sister, but unfortunately she died of leukemia when she was 10 back in 94.
I see. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That's an emotional turning point in your life, no doubt.
Oh, definitely. Yes. I was in the army at the time when she got diagnosed with leukemia. I was still in training. And actually I was a mechanic. I was a vehicle technician. I had finished my trade training and I was on to driver training. So learning to drive all the vehicles, you know. And then she actually died on the day I passed my test. So it was, the morning I passed my test, I was ready to phone home and, you know, tell everyone I passed my driving test. And I got the phone call first saying that unfortunately she had passed away. Yeah, she'd been suffering for quite a few months actually in the end.
Right. Yeah. Dave, what led you to the army? What was it about the army that drew you?
So I wasn't one of these who would say, I always wanted to be a soldier. You know, I wasn't. I always wanted to be a bricklayer like my father.
Yeah.
Or another tradesman that worked in and around construction, a carpenter or a plumber or something. But I was at home. The jobs I had while I was in school, I was a paper boy. I dabbled a bit with the milk round, you know, driving the milk float, but that was way too early for me because I was still in school. I was like a 3 o'clock in the morning start. And then I got a job in the factory, and that was making Christmas decorations. So, you know, sticking pre-decorated things to trees and, you know, tinsel machines and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, after that finished, that was a seasonal. So I had left school. I left school early. I was still 16 at the time. I left school, did that job, and then I was on a break then, leading up to the Christmas that year. And I was at home helping my mum paint the ceiling in the living room. I was up on the ladder painting the ceiling. My mother was sat there and she was like, "So Dave, what the fuck are you going to be going at now? You know, what are you going to be? You can't be hanging around this house for the rest of your life. Like, what are your plans? You worked in the fire, you did this, you did that. You're like, what are you going to do?" So she was flicking through the paper while I was up on the ceiling, outstretched, painting the little fan Dartex things up on the ceiling. And she said, "Have you ever thought of joining the army?" And I said, "No, not really." She said, "Well, there's an advert here for army careers." So she just planted the seed. No, she didn't really want me to join. It was just something she threw at me for a laugh. My mother's really funny, right? She was like always laughing and joking and playing pranks on me. But she planted the seed, and I thought about it, and I went to the army careers, and that's where I went from there.
Wow,
but
what a great story.
The funny thing after that, I did my interview. I did my test, the entrance test, because you do an entrance test and they will tell you what jobs are available for you, depending on your grade, kind of thing. And then I got told to go back for an interview. Went back for an interview, and they said I was in. Use your paperwork. We haven't got a spot for you just yet, but this was the end of this was the end of 91. But we got a spot for maybe middle of 92 when there's a new intake. I said, right, okay. So I took the paperwork home. I gave it to my mother thinking, you know, she's going to sign this straight away. I was still 16. So it had to be signed by a parent or guardian. And she said, "What? I'm not signing that." And she put it on the dining room table. And for the next 2 weeks, because I have to take it back down in 2 weeks' time, for the next 2 weeks, her and my dad, I would see them stop, look at the paper, and shake their head and walk past. And then, you know, another day they'd stop and I'd be like, "Are you going to sign it?" And anyway, they eventually both said, "Do you know what? We'll sign it, but I guarantee you'll be back here in a month." and that was the story. 22 years later.
Dave, on that point, were you really attached to your parents and not kind of showing any ability to say, "Well, I'm going to go here or there"? You were always around, were you? Was that the kind of relationship you had?
Yeah, I was always around. Yeah, we were a tight knit, you know.
Yeah.
Very, very, you know, very great atmosphere in our house. You know, lots of fun. My mother, my father, both practical jokers. You know, still to this day, if I'm ever down, I'll give my mother a quick FaceTime and she'll cheer me up. You know, and mutually we'll cheer each other. But we just get each other. You know, just that. I don't know, that sibling, or not sibling, that parent-child thing that we just get each other and we laugh a lot. Yeah.
That's a great story. So off you go, 16 years old, painting the ceiling, you join the army. Well,
Yeah.
where's life take you in the army? What's that like for you?
So I got, at that time, my older sister was in police training. So my older sister was a policewoman, South Wales Police. So she was in police training, and her passing out parade for the police was December the 19th, 1991. That was a Friday. On the Wednesday, I think it was a Friday, whatever day it was, or it was a holiday because it was obviously leading up to Christmas break. So earlier that week, you know, we were all going to watch my sister at a pass out parade for the police. I got a phone call from the Army Careers saying that they had a spot for me starting January the 5th at the Army Apprenticeship College in Reading, which was like 2.5 hours away from me. But I had to be down there on the same day my sister was passing out to swear my oath of allegiance to the Queen. You know, we all stand in the room, and as you guys know. Anyway, so that's what I did. I didn't go to see my sister. I went, swore my oath of allegiance, and I had 2 weeks to get ready, and I was off. Yeah, so we had Christmas. My mother arranged a little kind of like get together, going away party with all my school friends. And then they took me to the train station in Cardiff and waved me goodbye on a Sunday morning, January the 4th. I take it, January the 4th, 92, I think.
Were you nervous at this point? You're only a young man, like young boy,
yeah,
really.
Yeah, so nervous and naive. I didn't know what to expect. You know, I was that young that I had no preconceptions of what it was going to be like. So I got on the train, and there was another guy from Cardiff who got on the train. You know, obviously we didn't know each other, but he was going to the same place. He was joining up to be a medic. Now, the Army Apprentice College that I attended in Arborfield, near Reading, that for basic training, which was 14 weeks, it was the REME, so the technical guys, then medics and the dentists. So we all did basic training together. Then there was you know, the medics went off to their part of the school, and the dentists went off to their part of the school, and the main bulk of the school was the EME guys. So yeah, he was on that train, joining to be a medic, and we just chatted. Neither of us knew he knew a bit more than me because he had friends that had joined.
Yeah.
But I knew no one. I knew no one who had joined the army or had been in. Bless you.
So Dave, was there a dry eye at the train station, mom and dad? How did they take you heading off at 16 years old? Being beside the paper?
You know, my father, I remember my father had a smirk on his face because he said I was going to be back in a few weeks.
Yeah.
Because I was a little bit, I was a typical, very typical 16-year-old. I knew everything. I was cocky. And, you know, I was out to prove him wrong, but he laughed at me, and I was pretty cheeky. You know, we got toe to toe a few times. I was 16. I was a big man, wasn't I, at the time?
Yeah.
But yeah, he laughed at me, and he said, "See you in a couple of weeks, buddy." And I said, "No, you won't." My mother was crying. My little sister was there. She was crying. But yeah, it was. And I really didn't know if I would be back in 2 weeks' time. I really didn't know.
Yeah.
I didn't know what was coming.
Dave, sometimes when and Jerry and I have been through basic training, and my son joined the Navy when he was 16, went to basic training. Sometimes there's a group from, you know, in Canada that people tend to make fun of. And when Jerry and I went through training, they used to make fun of Newfoundlanders. I remember that. Oh yeah, I remember it to this day, how they used to kind of talk to us, and they kind of felt we were from some backwards part of the world. Were you treated like that coming from Wales, or was everybody just blend in at basic training up there? How did that look?
Yeah, no, so yeah, you do. And it's, you know, every location in the UK, as you know, you can drive 15, 20 minutes and there's a complete different accent, just like here in Newfoundland.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would get made fun of. You know, they call us taffies or sheep shaggers. You know, we got a high population of sheep in Wales, so we call sheep shaggers by the rest of the country.
Yeah.
And all those sheep jokes would come out, and they call us taffs because of the River Taff. We all grew up on, you know, along the River Taff. especially South Walians. So yeah, there was a lot of that banter going on, and then but it was the same for everyone. The Scousers, the Liverpudlians, the Geordies, the Cockneys from London, all the same kind of thing. All a lot of banter, all fresh-faced 16-year-olds.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of that. Yeah.
Tell me now. So you finished basic training, and then where did your Army career take you?
So yeah, my training was 2 years at the Apprentice College. So that was like 2 years at a military. It was like a boarding school. You had hours, you had a curfew, you had to be in by. So anyway, once I'd finished that 2 years, passed out of there, and then went on to phase 2 training, which was then on to, so I'd learned wheeled vehicles. Then I was on to armored vehicles and tracked vehicles, learning those, and then my driver training, and then out to my first unit. So my first unit, I started January 92, and I got to my first unit in August 94. So wow. that was bomb disposal, Royal Engineers.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, in a place called Wimbish in Essex.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, that was my first posting for 3 years there.
Young fellow from South Wales, probably runs into the regimental sergeant major right out of the gate.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah. got a few scrapes there. My first unit,
So what tours did you go on while you were in the Army?
So while I was in my first unit, I did nothing operational, all training tours. I did the Falklands.
Yeah.
6 months down there on a winter tour. That was 96. 95, I did which was an EOD tour. So there was a team there called Battle Area Clearance guys.
Yeah.
So I was attached to them as their vehicle technician, a small team of us in support to Cyprus, clearing up the old naval ranges on the Akmus Peninsula.
Yeah.
So I was there for 8 weeks. That was a great trip. That was my first trip, outside of UK, and it was Cyprus. Couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
7 weeks or 8 weeks in Cyprus, and then because I was the youngest guy in my section, there wasn't enough vehicles breaking down, not enough trade to be done. So they put me in one of the teams. So I was helping digging and locating, just like metal detecting basically, and finding. So that was a great experience on my first trip away. And then, like I said, I did 6 months winter tour in the Falklands, which again, another eye opener, 16 hours on an RAF flight, with a quick stopover in the Essential Islands. That was the longest trip I've been on. That was a heavy drinking tour, that one. Very heavy drinking tour. Young boy.
Never done that.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, there was, so every department had its own bar. And every night they were allocated their own night to open their bar. So you had a chance to go to a bar every night, and it was an occasion, something to celebrate every night of the week.
Dave, it's funny you talk about that. I was telling stories about my, short career in the military, but the tolerance for that kind of thing has changed dramatically now. Has that happened in the British military?
Yeah, I think so. Over time, it was like, as you know, the military is a very heavy drinking culture. There's always something to celebrate, always something, a person arriving, a person leaving, somebody getting a medal, somebody getting a promotion, just come back off tour, going on tour, last, any day that ends in Y has an occasion, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So it's always a drinking occasion. So yeah, it was but it did start to teeter off. I left in end of 2013, and I was in Germany, so I couldn't really go by the rest of the world because Germany's a heavy drinking post anyway, as you know. But yeah, the hierarchy certainly became more conscious of it. So it wasn't a scale A parade, you will be at the bar. It was, if you want to go to the bar, you can go to the bar,
Yeah, society changes over time, and it's all, and I think the military is a reflection of that as well. So any heavy operational tours, Dave? Where did you head off there?
So yeah, I did, my second posting was an infantry unit in Colchester, the RGBW, the Royal Gloucesters, Berkshires and Wiltshires. I was in their small detachment there. I went to Northern Ireland, then my first tour in 98, my first op tour.
Really?
March to September 98. And I was there for the Good Friday Agreement, Good
Oh,
Friday
sorry.
98.
Okay.
So that was South Armagh. That was in a place called Besbrook Mill. And if you know anything about Northern Ireland, South Armagh is, they call it bandit country. There's signs on the road with beware sniper.
Right.
It's predominantly Republican.
Right.
So we couldn't go out the gate. We would be in, if we had to move anywhere around the province, it would be in civilian clothes, in an unmarked car, pistol in your pocket,
Yeah.
car bag with a radio in it, in case you break down or in case you get an IRA snap checkpoint somewhere and you have to shoot your way out of it. So as a young private, that was an eye opener. I had lots of older experienced infantrymen on that tour that had been there many times and knew the lay of the land. But for me, it was a massive eye opener. Yeah, and I got a good funny story about that actually about that tour. One of the incidents. I'll go ahead with this, right?
Yeah. I'd love to hear it.
So me and my South Armagh, like I say, pretty. They call it bandit country. You have all the towers on the border. They call the Romeo Towers up in the hills, looking over the Republic of Ireland and over the border, crossing, as there was then a secure border. Anyway, me and my corporal at the time, a guy called Rob Rose, we had to go up to Belfast to go and collect some vehicle parts for vehicles that had broke down in our location. Anyway, when you leave the mill or the Besbrook Mill, you go into the movement control guys and they will tell you a route. And the routes are all coloured. There was like 6 different routes out of the mill to go a different way, yellow, red, and you had to know these off by heart. You had the map on the wall, you had to know them. You couldn't take a map with you. Anyway, you get your pistol, get your ammo, and off you go. And we'd done all this training about checkpoints, learned how to drive out of them, learned how to keep a big distance between you and the vehicle in front if you need to turn around. So me and Rob were coming back. We had done the job, got the parts, driving back to the mill, driving through a city called Newry, which is right on the border. And there's this big line of traffic on this real rural road, big line of traffic. So I'm driving. Rob took his pistol out of his pocket, cocked it on the heel of his shoe and put it under his leg. Because we could see up ahead, along this line of traffic, we could see 2 guys in black approaching every car, way in the distance. My heart in my mouth, I'm driving, Rob's going, right, make sure, Dave, you keep this distance now. Keep this distance. We get closer if need be. We don't want to raise any alarms. We don't want to be screeching out there. We'll just do a gentle turn and we'll drive out there. Let's see. Anyway, we get closer and closer. We're about 3 cars away and I'm thinking, Rob, are we, my pistol's here under my thigh on my seat. The car bag is ready. The car bag is what you've got your secure radio in, ready. And Rob's there with his pistol cocked under his lap. Anyway, we get closer and it's 2 guys dressed as nuns collecting with buckets, collecting money for a hospice.
Oh, Jesus.
We almost screeched out there, right? And the guy comes up to me, he goes, "You got any money for the hospice?" And I'm like, "Yes, but yes."
What'd you give him? $500 or something?
Yeah. Well, God.
That's a great story. Oh, wow.
I got tears in my eyes. That's funny.
But I was so scared. I was like, this is it. All those months of training, this is it. It's going to happen right here. While we, but yeah. So yeah, Northern Ireland out the way. Good Friday Agreement was signed while we were there. So we were involved in escorting the ballot boxes around South Armagh back to Belfast. Obviously, the threat of these ballot boxes being intercepted or hijacked, and also it was when the Omagh bombing was on as well.
Right.
So the Omagh bombing was while we were there. That one where they phoned up and said that the bomb was at this end of the street. Everyone got evacuated to the other end, and the bomb actually went off at that end. One of the worst atrocities that happened there. And my corporal at the time was actually involved in he went out and kept the phone box that call was made from on the border. The call to the authorities. My buddy Martin Black, he was a corporal at the time as well. He went out with the RUC, as it was at the time, the police service in Northern Ireland, in a helicopter, and cut the box with an angle grinder, cut the phone box so they could take it off for forensics up to Belfast. Yeah.
Oh wow, that's a heck of a tour.
Yeah, it was. Do you know, it was a busy tour. We lost one guy as well. One guy from one of the infantry guys got lost. And that was a fuel smuggler, because they used to smuggle fuel back and forth the border.
Yeah.
And he did a snap. He was out on a foot patrol, and he did a snap checkpoint, and a fuel tanker run over him. He was the corporal at the time, and as he came across in front of the vehicle, as the vehicle slowed down, the guy put his foot down and ran straight over him.
Jesus. Yeah, I can only imagine how you felt when those nuns were coming towards you, not knowing what.
Oh, do you know what? It was my heart in my mouth thinking about how I felt now, because I was only a youngster, right? And you get all the horror stories from the older guys, you know, just like when you're going to the big school and you think your head's going to get stuck down the toilet. The older guys will tell you all these crazy stories about, oh, watch out for this, watch out for that, you know. And yeah.
Dave, my aunt was a Roman Catholic nun, and I've heard stories of some people that went to her school and like they feared the nuns. So that story is funny.
Yeah, I fear them for
a different reason altogether. So, and then where else you go operationally? What else did you get on your plate?
So then I got posted to Germany. Then I never went back to UK after that. I got posted to Germany in 2000, and I did. Let me think back now. 2001, I went to Kenya. So that was exercise. I did Iraq in 2003. So that was Optelic 1.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was like the first brigade over the border into Iraq.
Yeah.
In February 2003, I was on that tour. And again, I was with the engineers in Germany with amphibious guys. So they were bridge builders.
Okay.
I was in support of the M3 amphibious bridging vehicle. So it's like this, it looks like this pod, and it opens up.
Yeah.
You know, go to the water, opens up, and they can link them together to form a bridge, or they can ferry vehicles across. So that was used the first time amphibious vehicles were used operationally since World War II, I think. So that was interesting. Yeah.
Wow. So you did a full career in the army, and then where did life take you? You got out of the army, I guess, at the time when you pension out or whatever, and then what was going through your mind then?
Yeah, so I did. Yeah, so following on those, I did Northern Ireland again, and I did Afghanistan in 2008. So they were the only other operational tours I did.
Yeah.
Aside of all the other, you know, worldly. Military tourist trips, we could call them, I suppose.
Right,
you know, just the same as yourself. I bet you've been all over the world, especially as Navy. You seem to travel a lot more than us guys do. But yeah, then I left my, so I was married for my first 13 years in. We split up. That was a girl I was with from home.
Right.
She moved back to Wales with my two children. I was still in Germany. And then I did Afghan, and then I got married then a second time to a girl from Ontario.
Okay.
Yeah. Whom I met here very briefly, flying through Stockton, Gander one night.
Was that right?
And she was in the hotel in Gander, and I was only in Gander for about 10 hours. But yeah, we just met, and a couple of years later, we just met and chatted in the bar, and a couple of years later was when we actually got on Facebook together, you know, or met on Facebook, I suppose. But yeah, we got married in 2010, and then we split up. But the reason I got to Newfoundland was because she got a job here when I retired.
Okay.
So that's what brought me here. And we split up in 2013. Oh, sorry, 2014.
Yeah.
She went back to Ontario. I had to return to the UK to get my residency, and then I came back because I love Newfoundland so much.
So not often the girl from Ontario brings a fella to Newfoundland, but this is good news. Good news.
Yeah. And she left me here, yeah.
We got to figure out how to do more of that.
Oh, wow.
Not to
So
split up, but leaving, guys here.
Yeah.
you fell in love with Newfoundland and you wanted to come back. What was it about Newfoundland that drew you back, Dave? What was it about the place?
So the people and, the landscape, I wouldn't say the weather so much as most people would say, because everyone asks me, why did you come here? Obviously not the weather, but the people and the landscape. Yeah, the landscape the coastal lines remind me very much so of the coastline of Wales. And the people, the humor, it's exactly the same. The sarcastic humor, all that kind of stuff just reminds me of growing up back home. Like my partner now, she's a local girl. We've been together 5 years, and she like her and my mother, they laugh at each other so much when we video. The humor is just so much the same. So yeah, I got drawn back here because one, I'd already started training people. So when I left the military, I wanted to be a trainer, and I'd already started training people here, and I knew that there was something there for me to build on. And yeah, the humor of the people, and it just seems so familiar to me,
Right. Yeah. It's that the way I describe it often, it's people from Newfoundland and indeed Atlantic Canada, by and large, they don't take themselves all that serious, right? They understand that life's going to continue on, and
that's right.
And I honestly believe it, Dave, that we genuinely care for one another. We genuinely want to see people do well around us, and because we believe in the saying that a rising tide floats all boats. We can all do this together. So we're better. Yeah. We're stronger together than we are apart, right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And that team ethos kind of thing that just people generally have. That's there from day one in the military, isn't it? The supporting each other and having each other's back kind of thing. And it's so true what you say there. People are really supportive, and in every walk of life.
Yeah.
Here it seems everybody is supporting you, and sometimes you think, what are you after?
Yeah, that's right.
But there's no hidden agenda, right?
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing, right? When you get into a conversation, the other person thinks you're trying to get something. I'm not trying to get something from you, buddy. I'm just wondering how you're doing.
I don't want anything in return. I'm just generally want to see you do well. And I said, I ended up with this place through a guy that just wanted to help me out.
Really? So tell me about this place. What are you involved?
So when I first got here, I was training people literally out the back of my van. I had some equipment. Some of the money I had from when I left the army, I bought some equipment, and I did community fitness in a few community centres, Balleen, Pooch Cove, and also the staff at the hospital, at the Waterford Hospital.
Yeah.
So that's how I was getting around, and I was doing outdoor boot camps in the summer. Turning up with my van. My van went through a lot of breaks, let me tell you, with all the weight I used to carry around. I was forever changing the brakes on the front of my van. But yeah, I would go around and train people, and people just kept coming, right? I didn't know how I would get the following that I got. I mean, I haven't got a huge following, but I've got enough for it to be worth my while, not only financially, but I'm helping people.
Right.
And in turn, they're helping me, because I needed this for me too.
Right. Yeah.
I like to be active. I like to keep fit. And I thought there was no way I'd be motivated enough if I wasn't doing it as a job.
Right. Yeah. So how did you wind up with the place that you're sitting in right now?
The place I'm in right now, a long time member of my classes, my outdoor classes in the summer, I was almost at the brink of stopping doing it because I had no location. So for most of the year, I was having to rent space, which was costing a lot of money per hour, right? So, and it wasn't really much financial gains for myself or that. So I said to one of the guys who was actually I'm located on Aberdeen Avenue, and upstairs is the Remax Realtors right on the top floor. And I'm in the basement, right underneath the bank. And I've been told that the safe is right over there in that corner. No, but the guy was a Remax Realtor upstairs, and he said, "Do you know what, Dave?" He said, "I think there's a spot down in the basement. Let me check it out for you. I'll give you a call." So he called me. He said, "You are not going to believe this." He called me the next day. He said, "You are not going to believe this." He said, "I've just gone to look at the space. And how it is, this turf you can see here, this was already here. Like I've done nothing to the infrastructure of it. Like it was set up as a gym. And it's almost identical to what I was envisaging me having eventually."
Wow.
So this guy, Chris, he said to me, "I found a spot down in the basement. You're going to need to come and see this. Are you free this afternoon?" So I met him. He opened the door, put the lights on, and I looked at him and I was like, "Oh my God, this is the spot." So Chris, for no fee, for no gain for himself, he said, "You know what, Dave?" He said, "I'll speak to the guys, the building management, and we'll see what we can do for a lease." So we went back and forth. He got me the best deal, and he set me up, and here I am.
Wow.
Just did it off his own back. Didn't want any favors,
Yeah,
Just wanted to see you do well. Yeah.
Just wanted to see you do well. I really enjoy, Dave, how you talk about you needed this as much for you as you did for the people that you're helping. And it's that kind of continuous cycle, right? You're helping people and they're helping you. And that's really a beautiful thing. I'll ask you this. What is your kind of value proposition? Why do people go to your gym as opposed to another? I can kind of get a bit of a sense for that. You seem like you're a pretty fun guy to be around, and you can.
Yeah, it's like, and this is no knock to younger people, but I just think a bit more life experience and the way to deal with people, because everyone's got a different personality and everyone will react differently when they're put under any kind of stress.
Yeah.
So when people are working hard, like you get a feel, and I think the more experience you've got in dealing with people, the better you can get the feel and get a laugh out of somebody, even when they're trying their hardest, and I've had people almost crying because they want to do well, but they can't do it, and they see other people around them in a group setting doing it no problem, and I just think my military experience and learning how to deal with younger soldiers and younger people to motivate them, and my sense of humor, which I was raised on. I was very fortunate to have really good fun parents and a fun family. Plus, as you know, the military, regardless of whatever situation, there's always a laugh. There's always a laugh. People poking fun.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just think that it's that people skills, and knowing how to identify when somebody needs a laugh or somebody just needs a bit of a serious encouragement. I just think reading the situations, I think.
Right. Yeah.
That's through experience.
Reading people, right, and understand where they are. And I'm so glad that you weaved in your military service with your upbringing in Wales, right? I mean, it's all foundational, right? That makes you who you are, right? Where you come from, what you've been through, all of those things. You can bring that complete package to your clients, right? You're coming. Yeah. So there's the value proposition right there, right?
Totally, yeah, totally. And had I been on my own, I probably wouldn't have taken the dive into going for this, because I've never been a businessman. Being military, nothing was ever for money.
Right.
It was never how much can I make from this. But my partner now, she's really supportive, and she's one of those that says to me, you don't know if you don't try.
Right.
If you fail, then you know what not to do next time. She's really got my back all the time. So had I been on my own, I probably wouldn't have taken this on because of the rent. That the first month's rent was initially something like, how am I going to get that? I was thinking month by month. And she said, just do it, take it on. People will come, you'll cover the rent, and then we'll work from there. And 2 months later, COVID struck.
Yeah, well, you know what, Dave, I was going to ask you about that. How have you worked through COVID?
So I took this spot over November 19. So I had 2 good months, and then we had Snowmageddon here, January. So I closed for just over a week, then got people back through the door, and then March we had closed down for COVID. Now I'm really fortunate, because I've heard some horror stories about, you know, tenant landlord agreements kind of thing. I was really fortunate that my landlord here, the owner of this building, they availed of the, you know, the federal government's systems in place. So they covered, they did all the paperwork. All I had to do was sign the paperwork.
Wow.
And they put that through, and that covered 75% of the rent.
Right.
So I had to cover 25% of the rent. So I was doing online then from home. I was doing online classes, and the dedicated following. Again, we helped each other. It wasn't for their benefit or my benefit. It was a mutual thing. I helped the guys, they helped me. And yeah, they would turn up 10 o'clock, 3 mornings a week on Zoom for a workout from my kitchen.
Good agility and thought there to make the flip and keep things on track.
Yeah. Well, I also allowed people to come in and take my equipment home with them.
Right.
Really?
Okay.
Yeah, because that gave me more flexibility in my workouts.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just all body weight. I said, come in, whoever wants to come in. I had a list up on, as you can see, I've got black walls, and I used the chalk on the walls. I had a list on the wall there with all the names of the people that came in, and they were allowed to take 1 kettlebell or 1 dumbbell home. So I knew they had that, and then I could throw them workouts in as well.
Right.
Yeah.
None of this stuff can be done without a supportive partner. Jerry and I have pretty supportive partners in our lives. Sounds like you've got a pretty supportive partner right now. Tell me a little bit about her.
Yeah, Donna, my partner, she's awesome. Like in everything I do, she has got my back 100%. And it's, you know, it's so refreshing to have somebody like that behind you all the way. You know, not questioning anything you do, and any kind of business decision I make. Sometimes I'm expecting a wall, but it's no, go for it, you know, all the time. Fully got my back. Donna's from here. Donna's from Kitty Viddy, actually, from the gut. Yeah, so local girl, and yeah, she works at the town of Balleen. Yeah, does a fantastic job there, and she is very community spirited. You know, she put a few things in place during COVID out in Balleen that made the news. She was on what's the guy on VOCM?
Smith? Go Smith?
No, the guy that does the calling.
Oh, Paddy Daly.
Paddy Daly. She was on Paddy Daly as well, because she did this thing for the seniors, where food bank kind of.
Okay.
So we delivered food to the seniors all around Balleen. So that's the kind of person she is. Community spirited and always looking to help people out. For no gain, no reward. Yeah. Doesn't want any recognition at all. Yeah. Just wants to do it to help people out. And that goes down to her upbringing, you know, as well.
She's getting some recognition now, which is great.
She deserves it, trust me.
Yeah, that's good. So Dave, what's on the horizon? What's next for you? Where do you want to take this?
So always, you know, always looking for the next thing, as you taught in the military, always looking for the next promotion, right? Always looking for the next tour. Yeah. I've got this place. I'm here for probably another 2 or 3 years on the lease. I really want a front. So I'm down in the basement. Yeah. It's difficult to advertise up out the front. I've got no window. I've got none of that. So eventually, I want to have a bigger spot. I want to have staff, other people. I want to bring in younger people and train them to be trainers and to give out as well. You know, I'd love to take on some young kids straight out of school that are interested in doing this.
Right.
And to take them on, train them, get them through the courses to qualify them, and throw them into the wide world and doing the same things I'm doing as well.
So it sounds like you want to mentor people along the path there.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And another thing I would really love to do, and I think about this all the time when I'm out running myself. You know, that's a great time to get your head in the game. You know, a veteran spot, a veterans only session where guys can come in, work out, get out their frustrations, because it's, you know, it's therapy.
Yeah.
It is. Working out should be the first thing your doctor prescribes to you when you go in there and you say you're feeling depressed. You know, activity should be the very first thing, not pills and portions. Yeah. Just try some fresh air, try some activity. And I'd like to get veterans only sessions where we can have 2 hours, an hour of working out and an hour of banter, you know, poke fun of each other, have a laugh, have a brew, and then, you know,
that's a great,
get the morale up for the guys. Like,
That's an honorable
needed
thing.
it. Yeah, no kidding, Alan. Talking about that, you know, my brother, as I said at the beginning, speaks highly of you. You know, there's times he needs that. And there's so many guys out there just frankly suffering in silence, and they need the camaraderie. I really like your idea there.
Yeah.
And then John, you know, talking about your brother there, Jerry, John came in and he explained to me how he found me. He was looking online. He knew he needed to get back at something physical. He looked at a few of the spots around, and then he saw my website, seen I was a veteran, and he said that was it. You know, he called me, came straight in and started straight away. And we have banter classes now. Me and him. Other people don't really know what's going on when we're laughing and joking or what we're talking about. But you know, it's certainly good therapy for both of us.
Mm-hmm. Dave, I love your approach. It's clear you're a level guy. You're full of energy and passion and enthusiasm, and you genuinely want to help people. It's so refreshing to see that. Of course, you're surrounded by that in Newfoundland, but it's so refreshing to have this conversation about what you're doing, and you're to be applauded for that. We always ask our guests to leave the audience, and the audience is global. It's from everywhere, you know. What would a small piece of advice be from a guy who's had a really interesting journey, come from pretty humble beginnings, done some really interesting things, set up this business, and here you are? What would that piece of advice be?
Pretty simple, really. Treat others how you'd want to be treated yourself. You know, in all aspects of life, whether it be at work, whether it be at home. You know, I'm not anti-establishment, but I certainly believe everybody, whether you're the guy on the street, whether you're, you know, the managing director of some big corporation, everybody deserves to be treated the same.
Yeah.
You know, I don't like, really don't like others looking down on other people just because of their social status or their financial status, you know.
Yeah.
So treat others how you'd want to be treated yourself, and you won't go far wrong in my eyes.
Where does that come from, Dave? Where does that thought process come from inside you?
That's come from how I was raised by my parents, and my grandparents.
Yeah, 100%.
Dave, is your dad still alive, Dave?
Yeah, both my parents are still alive. Yeah.
Have they been here?
My mother's been here. My mother absolutely loves it here.
Yeah. Good. It's great. You know, I love that. Bringing your parents here is you know, just wonderful. Showing them this incredible province.
Yeah, they love it. My sister and my brother-in-law came over, and they were here while the regatta was on, and they have great memories of the regatta evening. Everyone sat around the boathouse drinking beer, and we'd ran out of beer, and then the next thing, a guy walks up to us with a head torch on, and he had like a you know those coolers you get that exactly fit in a 12-pack, and it's in the shape of a rucksack. This head torch came up to us. One of our group was saying, "Oh, I'm running out of beer." The next thing, this head torch appeared. And he goes, "Yeah, I got a case here," and he plonked it right in the middle of us. My sister was like, "Who's this guy?" He just gave his beer away.
Jerry, what are your final thoughts on today's episode?
I just think, I think a lot about this province and the fact that, Dave, you've chosen to come here and bring your talents and help bring fitness to the province is just commendable. I look forward to following your journey in the future. And, the idea of a veteran type operation where people who have that background can come and you have the banter, but also bringing some young people on board. I think that's important. Alan and I started this Gale Force Wins. We're helping people, I think, with the mind. But if your mind is good and your body's not, what's the sense of that, right? So thanks for bringing this to Newfoundland.
It's quality of life, right? You can say, okay, my granddad lived until he was 90, but what was his quality of life like?
Right.
Yeah.
And if you see it yourself, I did a half marathon here a couple of years ago, and just as I was coming down tops of the road, down the finishing straight there, a lady come past, and I got a photo. I'll send John the photo. He'll send it to you. You should see it. This picture paints 1,000 words. This lady must have been in her late 70s. Come running past me, and I'm on my last legs, 200 meters to go. She comes running past me. She's going, "Come on, we're nearly there."
Well, wonderful story and a great conversation. Another great edition of Gale Force Wins. And to hear Dave talk about his journey out of South Wales into the Army and now situating himself in Newfoundland and helping a lot of people along the way with a great plan to mentor young people and help those folks along the way as well. I got to tell you, Dave, pretty inspirational stuff. We sure are glad you found your way to Atlantic Canada, specifically Newfoundland. There's no doubt you're adding a great deal to our province and to our region of Canada, and we thank you for that. I can't help but think your mom, dad, your older sister, and I bet your little sister would be pretty proud of you as well. So keep up the great work. We appreciate you being part of our society and choosing us, choosing Canada to be a part of it. We really appreciate that. And I always like to leave the audience with my own piece of advice. And quite simply, that is, the world needs more Dave Jeenes. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you, guys. Thanks very much.
Thank you for tuning in to Gale Force Wins. That's Gale Force Wins, WINS.com.